You know those moments on the push where everything just locks in? You're in the zone, happy accidents. Well, this new device is packed full of those. The Push Euclidean Mode is a MaxforLive device that brings Euclidean sequencing directly to the push. It focuses on the controls being based around the pads, not the dials, which feels a lot more intuitive for sequencing. So let's jump into Ableton Live, see how we get this all set up, and then start making some Euclidean rhythms on the push. So I've loaded a new instance of the Push Euclidean Mode onto an empty MIDI track. I am sequencing the User 1 kit from the golden era drum pack that's featured on the Isotonik's website as well. Now, if you notice, my push is still looking pretty normal. It hasn't taken over the pads just yet. For it to take over control of the pads, you need to just set up a few things. You need to go here and select your control service you wish to use. If you don't see it listed here, for example, here, push 2, wait, that's a push 3, right? Okay, so what you need to do is go refresh. That one will populate the list with all the available control services. So I'm going to go to push 3 and then press activate. Doodly-ding. There it is. Okay, so that's all we need to do in live for now. So I'm going to focus my attention back to the push. So as mentioned before, this device takes over the control of the pads. It's split into 3 main sections. The first main section here is your usual drum rack quarter in the bottom left-hand corner here. And this is your track select. These pads select what track you wish to sequence. For example, if I press this pad here, all the other controls that I'll be changing, like the sequencer and velocity, will affect this track here. Now, if I want to select another track, I just simply click another pad, and then the sequencer and velocity things that we can change will affect that track. Now, each track has a MIDI note. For example, here, this one is C1. We can adjust it, but if you are using a drum rack in Ableton Live, like this one I've got here, the User 1 kit, it is the same MIDI notes as you would expect for a drum rack. So we don't really have to do any adjusting there. Next thing to talk about is the steps view up here. This is how many steps we would like to have in our Euclidean sequence. As by default, it's set to 16. We can increase it by just pressing this pad down here, right up to 32 steps. Now you saw there the hits changed because this is a Euclidean algorithm. It will mathematically distribute the hits across the sequence. So depending on how many steps you have and how many hits you have, you get different rhythms. So you saw there, it's now gone to the first beat of the bar. Now, if I go pick a random number here, you see the hits change as well. So yeah, the blue illuminated pads represent the hits. Now, how we access the hits is we hold down shift. The pads go green. The ones that are illuminated a lighter color green are how many hits we have got. Now you see the maximum goes up to here. And if I press here, it doesn't go anymore. That's because we only have that many steps. So if you want more hits, you need to have more steps like this. So you can go all the way up like that. Let's go back and choose 4 and we'll put it back to 16 steps. This button here enables the sequence to run. So without this, the sequence won't happen. Now, to get your transport play back on the push, you hold down shift and that is your usual play. You can't hear anything because I haven't pressed the run button. So if I press run, you now hear it. And if I press the transport play button by holding down shift, it stops the whole track. Let's now add in a few more steps and let's hold down shift and hold in a few more hits. Now we have kind of quite a syncopated pattern. Let's hear that. Let's turn down the hits a little bit. Cool. So let's now try another track and let's try a snare. This, I want to have a standard backbeat snare. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, the hits, I'm going to have 2 hits. Notice the hits happen right at the start of the bar. What I can do is rotate the start point. So I'm going to press this button until they land on the second beat of the bar. Let's hear that together. Let's bring in some hi-hats. Let's press run. Nice. Let's bring in another one. try a shaker. So you saw there, it was super easy to get a really complex syncopated drum beat there. Next, we're going to look at how you control the velocity of the notes in each one of these tracks. And you can do this directly on the pads with this little quarter down here. Now these pads set the velocity of the notes. So we can have a velocity of 1, or we can have a velocity of 127. Rather than have that as a constant, we can also set that as a range. And how the velocities vary in the range, we can control with this dial here. So as default, it's set to equal. But if we go up to, say, something like full 16, and we put it to 127, that's going to start 127, and over 16 steps, it's going to step down to 1. So check this out. So that's just on the percussion. Cool. I really like this on full 4. If I bring the velocity down a little bit. So that does the velocities per track. So remember, your track select, you'll get a different set of velocities there. So this sequencer really does open up a lot of expression possibilities. Next up, if we press this button up here, we get access to the global menu. This is where we can turn swing off and on, just pressing on, and the amount. So if I bring that back in, and just put it on a little bit. We also have shift lock, and we can turn this off and on. And that deals with this shift button here. So when this is set to off, it's a momentary control. So when I hold it down, it will show you the hits that I can put into the steps. Take my finger off, and it goes back to just the steps. Now, if I switch this to on, it's now a toggle off and on. So I press it down once. Look, no hands. It's now into the hits menu. And if I press it again, I go back to steps. Also, what we can do is we can shift switch top to bottom. So what this means is I can have the steps and the hits side by side when I press the shift button. So check this out. Say if I want to edit the amount of steps and hits at the same time, I press shift. And now the hits menu takes over the bottom half of the pads and then the steps up here. So you can see, you know, if you're editing just the steps and the hits and you don't want the velocities or track select, everything's laid out here ready to go. And then to get back to the track select and velocities, you just press the shift button again. Last thing to mention is you can choose the subdivision of the Euclidean sequencer. You can do that with the scene launch buttons here. It kind of makes sense because they're also used for the sequencer and drum rack and also the beat repeat, and they already have subdivisions laid out there. So if we put this down to 8th note and I bring that in, essentially going to do it at half time. Speed it up. Nice. Now we're going to look at adding in some drum fills that we can toggle on and off without overriding the pattern. We can do this by simply holding down the track select button and then touching the empty steps. What this will do is it will populate the empty steps with some hits. But as soon as I change something like the length of the steps or amount of hits, it will go back to the default pattern. This acts as like adding in a drum fill and then you can just reset it. Check this out, let me play it, I'll add some in and then I'll reset it. So I populated it with loads of hits. There you go. So you saw there, I held down this button, pressed in a bunch of pads, get like some 16th note drum fills, took my finger off the pad. Then as soon as I changed it, you saw there, it just resets to the default pattern you already have. This is really cool for coming up with fills or just some extra beat ideas. Really handy to have that. Now say you come up with a pattern, everything's sounding wicked and you wish you could actually have the MIDI to go in and fine tweak those notes. If you look here on the plugin, in Live, there is a clip button. If I press that, it then populates the clip with all the MIDI notes and all the velocity. for you to then fine tune and edit later, which is wicked. Last thing I'd like to show you is how you create melodies with the Push Euclidean mode. I'm going to go to this track in Live here, and I have the Push Euclidean mode set up. I've activated it, and I have put a scale device on after it here. I've put it to minor pentatonic to fit the key of the song. And then I have a simple mono synth. It's by Fours, it's called Para. And it's going to the lovely whale audio effect as well, which is also available on the Isotonik Studios website as well. If you don't have that one, get it. It's brilliant. I should say that I have the bass. It's being created by Mono One, which is also on Isotonik Studios website. And also the ARP is being done by Mono One, Arpeggiator going into whale. And we also have Pigra on Ascend, and I'm going to bring that in a second. I'm just going to set it up so you can hear it. I'm going to activate it so we can get it on the pads. Okay, so now let's press run and bring it in. Let's add a few more steps. Hold shift to add a few more hits. Nice. Now let's bring in another track by pressing the track select. It has an A sharp one note, which might not necessarily be in the key, but because we got the scale MIDI effect on after it, it's going to quantize it to the key of E minor, which our song is in. But you can go up here and you can twist this dial and manually adjust the note if you want to as well. So let's bring that one in now as well. Press run and bring transport in. Let's do a few hits. Let's bring in another note. Let's bring this one in. Let's press run. A bit too many. Okay, so let's hear that in with the rest of the song. Nice. Let's bring in Pigra as well on the send. So that's the Push Euclidean Mode device. If you like experimenting with Euclidean rhythms, drums, percussion, melodies, and like the idea of doing it directly on the Push pads, this device is for you. So go grab a copy, have fun with that, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.